they did hype this up, and they're saying now there's nothing there and it's on false pretenses. But are they going to apologize for that part of it? Apologize for, dragging Bill Gates for no reason, according to this narrative? No, they're not going to do that. They're just going to dig their heels in and say, hey, we did the right thing. We investigated, and we're going to go above and beyond to release grand jury testimony, which likely won't pan out. If it does pan out, it'll be in several months. It's subject to court decisions, which might not work because I think it's in the Southern District of Manhattan, which has been adversarial and known to withhold a lot of information. And when it does come out, will probably be full of redactions. Look, we know what evidence exists because it's documented. It's been documented for years. We know there was evidence withheld from the public in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. How did she get convicted by a jury of her peers? Just for sex trafficking children to no one? Except Epstein, I guess, is what they're going with. We know evidence exists from that case that isn't being put forward. We also know that Epstein acted as an informant for the feds twice. Once after Tower Financial went down. This was a company that was instigating a pyramid scheme that panned out to be one of the biggest pyramid schemes in U.S. history from a company called Towers Financial. It was headed by a guy named Stephen Hoffenberg. He went to prison for 18 years over this, and Epstein cooperated with the feds to divulge the information about how they were taking investments from, newer investors and paying out the old investors. And this was a huge scandal, and Epstein cooperated with the feds and gave them information over this. We also know after Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction for child molestation charges, where there are 40 plus victims, he got that sweetheart deal where, he got a release from prison. He got to carve out his own branch of the sheriff's department and, serve out his term there. He got to go between properties internationally. He was essentially treated as a king, and he was going down for child molestation. And Alex Acosta, the who was in charge of the prosecution, even above the local DA, said, hey, I'm going to cut him a deal. And when asked about this, he said, I was told that Epstein was part of intelligence, so I have to back out. We know some of this stuff exists. Dave talked about the relationship with Ehud Barak. Yeah, Ehud Barak visited him 30 times after his conviction for child molestation charges, lived in his Manhattan property, which he received from Les Wexner. It's a $77 million property, the most expensive one in Manhattan. I think it remains so today. No explanation there as far as why Wexner gave him so much money too, by the way. And by the way, Les Wexner also has a lot of connections to pro-Israeli causes. Epstein was mentored by Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, Israel's most famous spy that had essentially a Mossad-sponsored special wedding or special funeral on the Mount of Olives. There's just so many connections here that they're not going to touch. So no matter what's ever released, they're not going to touch these things. And one more thing is that we know that there are $1.5 billion of wire transfers between Epstein and people of prominence out there. Only Ron Wyden and a few other people in Congress are talking about this right now, but that's also something that the feds can release and show where the money trail is. I mean, I'm with Ian Carroll when he talks about how you should follow the money and seek the truth. I think the money will lead us to what happened here with the Epstein struggle. But what's not being talked about regarding Epstein is that, he was prominent in circles that engaged in arms trafficking and money laundering before a lot of the sexual abuse allegations and conviction started to come out. Before that took over kind of the zeitgeist of the Epstein story. And that's an important aspect for sure. I want to see information related to prominent people involved in a child sex trafficking ring. I don't think we'll ever see that. We didn't see that from Biden, and I don't think we'll see that from Trump. But he was also involved in money laundering schemes and armed trafficking schemes. And, you sometimes hear people say like, well, Epstein was an imposter, he was a charlatan, he was a swindler, but actually, in my research, I found that he was very proficient at knowing how the international banking scene worked and how to move money without paper trails and things like that. He was very proficient in it. He was very good in that. And the other relations he had often served as a cover for that. So I think if you go down that route and divulge some of this money transfer activity, which we know exists and hasn't been disclosed, what do you know? We won't learn more. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna also have legislation that would force the release of actual Epstein files, not this mumbo jumbo, red herring stuff they're trying to throw out right now to compensate for the fact that Trump is suffering in his reputation for how he's handling this. Not that stuff. What Ro Khanna and Massie are talking about is the stuff that the public wants to see. They're shutting it down. Mike Johnson's out there right now trying to shut it down, saying, hey, we're going to try to be as transparent as possible and give you all the list of the victims and stuff like that. Again, more red herring stuff. We already know who the accusers and victims are for the most part. There are more, I think, that their names have been withheld, but we know who got victimized. It was underage women, underage girls, I should say, not women. Like, that was the duplicity here. But we also know that there is a lot of crimes regarding arms transfers, weapons transfers, etc. He had a very good relationship with Adnan Khashoggi, who took care of the Middle East end of Iran-Contra, where arms were moved through Israel to the Iranian Contras in contradiction to U.S. law because the deep state wanted to do that under Reagan, but they were prohibited by law from doing that under Reagan. So that's how they accomplished it. So yeah, I'm with Dave. I'm especially surprised at how this is being handled. I think going with the angle that this is a Democratic hoax is the stupidest thing that you can imagine, because the attention span of Americans is short, but it's not that short. It's not short enough that you can just cover this up and pretend all of Trump's supporters, back then in 2018 and 2019 will just completely forget about it and think that, the Russiagate scandal was actually about Epstein and that was a Democratic hoax. It's too unfathomable to even think that this would have worked, that this would have held sway with Trump's support base. And that's why you see very prominent people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and, having sincere issues with how this is being handled. Even Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire is having trouble with how this is being handled. So that's where we're at. That's where we're going, and I don't think we're going to get serious answers. I think the only way serious answers might occur is if Congress somehow grows the cojones to pass Massie and Khanna's legislation. I'm not holding my breath on that, by the way. Or a whistleblower comes out and blows the roof off this thing and actually is in the know and divulges the layers of evil that were involved in this man and all of his crimes. If there's another Snowden or another Assange out there that brings this truth to mind and to the public, I think they're a hero. And I hope that happens. But until then, we'll have to see. So let me know down below, is this a cover-up? Are you surprised with how the Trump administration has handled this? Do you have any confidence in how they are handling it, given the pushback? Let me know down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to Piers Morgan 2. Great show with people like Dave on it. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can support the channel. And in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.